All right, here we go. It's the first lesson of the last unit, topic 12.1, how fascism works. In this unit, we're going to be looking at both how fascism works, obviously, but how it played out in several case examples. So before we can talk about fascism rising in Italy and in Germany, the consequences of that, we have to first understand how this political system actually functions. So that is our goal in this lesson. You should be able to explain how fascist systems gain power and why people support or accept them in the first place. So first, the big picture here. Instability creates opportunity. And this is where we see a dangerous combination in history that we should always look out for. When there's instability in society, people tend to take advantage of this, or there are people who will try to take advantage of it. So economic instability or economic problems being things like a large number of people unable to find work, or they're unable to be able to afford their bills and pay for food, or political instability and conflict, in the sense that this politics seems unstable, as if the government can't really solve our problems or is no longer working for us. This leads to people feeling fear, uncertain, and very frustrated with the situation. And so when these things happen, people begin to look for solutions, believing their current system can't solve what they're experiencing. And this is where fascism can creep in. Fascism is a system of government that is characterized by several things. There's strong centralized leadership, that is to say that there is all the power of government is in one person or a small group of people's hands. There's very limited political freedom, so you can't question the government. The government is all powerful, and you will be punished for questioning them. And there's strong control over society in general. So the government has a lot of control over what you think, what you do, what you can do, what you can't do. The focus of fascism is to create a sense of national unity, strength, and loyalty. Now, these might seem like good things on their surface, but it can lead to some very dangerous consequences, right? In a fascist system, power is concentrated into a single leader or a small group that will use persuasion to convince you that they're right, control to make sure that you believe what they're saying is right, and fear so that even if you don't believe them, you're too afraid to challenge them. The goal here is to create a strong, unified nation, to restore order during a time of crisis. So you can see how the instability really gives them a chance to get it in there. To eliminate opposition and disagreement. So anyone who disagrees with them, they think are weakening the nation and need to be got rid of. And to promote loyalty to the state. That is, loyalty to the government above all else. So your individual rights are not as important as the strength of the government itself. In short, the fascist goal is to create stability and power, which are prioritized over individual freedom. And they say the only way to create stability is through a strong, powerful government that pretty much controls everything in our lives and pits us against each other. All right, so we're going to go through the steps of how this works. So step one is those initial conditions that allow the fascist ideas to grow. So instability is the start of this because it creates fear, as I mentioned before. So governments will struggle to solve those problems, whether they're economic problems or political problems. And so the current leaders will look weak and ineffective, and people will start to lose trust in those systems, whether it's elections, politicians, democracy, banks, whatever it is. People will tend to lose trust that the current system is able to fix their problems. And those are very real problems they're facing. People will want stability, they'll want safety, and because they feel those old systems are no longer working for them, they want change. And so that instability makes people more open to the idea of a strong leader who promises to fix all their problems. And those old institutions, the court system, the banks, elected officials, they're all seen as ineffective at best, at worst, corrupt. Step two, these fascist leaders will offer very simple solutions. So they'll promise order, strength, and stability to society, and they'll do this with messages that are simple, very clear, and very easy to understand. One of the big problems here, though, is that these are very complex problems that don't have easy answers, but a fascist leader will offer you saying a simple solution, saying these complex things aren't very complex. It's actually pretty simple. The institutions, the courts, the banks, the elections, whatever it is, they're not just ineffective, they're actively working against you, and I, the leader, can solve them for you. And these very simple solutions are very appealing to people during a crisis because Well, they're easy to understand, and when people are afraid, they want easy answers. The third step here is to control how people think. Messages are focused on emotion, fear, and pride. These are very simple things to understand, right? Don't go try to convince people through logic and reasoning. Instead, you play off their emotions, specifically the emotions of fear of what is happening and pride in who you are or where you've come from. These ideas are repeated often, and the more often they're repeated is kind of the point, right? It's to reinforce those beliefs. By saying it over and over and over again, it gets people to buy in and believe they're true. So you repeat the lie as many times as necessary until people believe it's true. The messages will avoid complex explanations or opposing viewpoints. Again, the simplification is the point here. Make things simple and play off emotions. Don't worry about what the other side says, right? If the other side is ever brought up, it's kind of to put up a caricature of the other side, to exaggerate their beliefs, to make them seem out of step with the mainstream. Which is kind of ironic because the fascist ideas are usually the ones that are very out of step with the mainstream until they can convince you to make them mainstream. Again, the goal here is to shape how people understand what reality is, right? Don't believe what your eyes are showing you, don't believe what your ears are hearing. Instead, believe this fanciful, oversimplified answer that the fascist leader is giving you. And this will lead to step four, gradual change, right? These changes in society will happen very slowly over time, right? It's not going to be a switch flips and all of a sudden, oh my God, everything's Nazi Germany. It's a slow change, gradually over time. And the point here is for people to begin to accept these policies, to support the leadership, and ignore the warning signs along the way. The old way of describing this is if you take a frog and you put it in like room temperature water, the frog's going to enjoy the temperature. If you slowly increase the temperature over a long period of time, eventually the water will start boiling, but the frog will become used to each new notch of the temperature up along the way, and then it'll just let itself be boiled alive because it doesn't realize the temperature got that high because it was raised so slowly over a long period of time. Fascism works the same way. So over time, rights begin to weaken and power becomes concentrated into a single leader or that small group of leadership, right? And this is slow, step by step, so that the frog, in this case us, we don't realize our rights are going away or that power is being concentrated in the hands of one or too few of people. And these steps are supported by very specific tactics that are used to influence how people think and behave so they don't really realize what's happening, and instead of resisting, they accept it and actually embrace it. We're going to look at how fascism builds the support through the control of our thoughts. Fascists attempt to control what you understand as reality. They create a story about a very strong or better past. Things used to be great a long time ago until something happened that changed it. They spread this message and repeat ideas very often to very simplify problems and explain we were great, but these simple things happened that were terrible, and here's a simple way to fix it. They attack experts and facts and opposing viewpoints because they don't want you challenging what they're telling you. So, experts will be discredited, facts will be called just opinions, and anyone who disagrees with them will begin to be called enemies of the state. Eventually, people won't know what's true and what's not true, and they'll rely on the leader for all answers instead of experts in their individual fields. They also like to say that society is divided into two groups, us and them. Now, us and them changes depending on what society or fascist leader you're talking about, but they all use this division tactic, right? Us, we are a loyal people, we are strong, we deserve everything we have. And them, whoever they are they're blamed for all the problems, they're dangerous, they're outsiders, they're not like us. And this us and them framing creates a unity within the in group and distrust of the others. So you're building this kind of alliance of people within society and telling them how great they are and giving them someone to blame for their problems. This is another way to simplify complex problems into clear sides. You don't have a job, it's because they're taking all your jobs. You don't have enough to eat, it's because those people are ruining society, right? It's never the fault of the us group, it's always the fault of the them group. So it gives the us group someone to hate and someone to blame. The fascists will say a specific group is the cause of all of our problems, and all the anger of society should be directed toward that group, because if it weren't for them, everything for us would be great. Again, the goal is oversimplification, making the in group feel special, and giving them an out group to direct their anger toward. And angry people is a people that's very easy to manipulate, especially if you're controlling the narrative of who they should be angry at and why. So those old institutions are ineffective because they are rigged against you. And who rigged these systems against you? Who rigged the elections and the economy and everything against you? Well, it's them, the outgroup. It distracts people from thinking about the real causes of their problems. And it makes the problem seem very easy to fix as long as you have someone to blame, right? Well, the economy is terrible. There's no jobs. If we got rid of them, there'd be jobs. Rent's too high. Well, if we got rid of them, rent would be lower. It's a very easy to understand excuse that's never actually really accurate. But they don't. But the fascists, they don't want you thinking that. See, fascists feed off of strong national pride as well, right? This idea that we, this group, our nation, whatever the nation is, are the special group in history chosen by God or, chosen to be the elite. The fascists feed off of this idea. They create an emphasis on unity of the nation and showing demonstrations of strength, right? Here, I am the fascist leader, and the leader, I'm strong, I'm going to show you how strong I am, and that's going to make you feel strong through me. And because of that, they'll demand loyalty to the country and the leader above all else. Because after all, the nation is what we should be proud of. And so you see this extreme nationalism is a key feature of fascism. Now, if you're paying attention to our World War I buildup units, you'll notice that nationalism has been something that's been growing across Europe in these units leading up to these final lessons. The goal here is to create an emotional connection, and it becomes part of how people see themselves, right? Part of their identity, something they can't live without. So if there's an attack against the leader, who is the symbol of your nation, then it's an attack on you, and you'll more strongly defend that fascist leader. Again, all this, the goal is to encourage people to support the fascist system. So why do people follow fascist leaders? Well, quite frankly, it's because people have very real problems. They're not just falling for these systems, they're responding to very real problems that are in their life. There's a lot of uncertainty going on in their lives, they're afraid of a lot of things, and people are just trying to solve real problems in their lives, and things just don't seem to be getting better, and along comes someone with an easy answer. So they're not falling for it, they're just looking for real solutions, and fascist leaders are offering them a solution while also making them feel proud of themselves and giving them someone to blame. So people's reactions here, they're very logical, right? People are afraid. They want safety. They want stability. And fascists give them someone to blame and offer them that order and stability. There's incentives. People want jobs. They want economic improvement. And fascists promise that if you let them have more power, you will have economic stability. You'll be able to pay your rent. You'll be able to put food on the table again. You just have to give the fascist leader more power. There's belief, right? There's pride, identity, and nationalism at play here. And fascists teach people that they are special, they are deserving, and the scapegoats, the outgroup, the they group, the them group, they're the ones keeping you down. It's not your fault, it's them. And then there's conformity, right? Fascists take advantage of the fact that people do not want to be seen as standing out. Everyone wants to fit in, right? This is something that teenagers especially feel, right? You don't want to stick out. If you stick out, you can be targeted. And so if other people are going along with it, it makes you more likely to go along with it to avoid being seen as different. People are making these decisions based on their very real situations, and fascists are taking advantage of that. That's why instability is the greatest gift to fascist leaders, because they use that instability that creates fear in order to gain power for themselves. So, the key takeaways here, right? Fascism grows out of instability and fear in society. Fascist leaders gain power by shaping how people think. Ordinary people support or accept these systems for very real reasons, solutions to their problems. And then finally, this process happens gradually, slowly, over time, bit by bit. A lot of people didn't realize what was happening until it was too late. Now, of course, there were many people in fascist societies that knew exactly what was happening, and they were willingly going along with it and actively working to make it happen. But there are a lot of people who are just going about their lives and didn't really realize how bad it was until they were too deep into the system. Okay, that's the framework we're going to be using for the rest of this last unit. So we're going to see how this was used for the rise of fascist powers in Italy, the fascist powers in Germany, and then we're going to see the consequences of this. For now, I want you to rewrite today's goal as always. Write those 3 important facts. Don't copy paste. Type them out. Complete thoughts. Complete sentences. And then one question you want me to answer for you. All right. Until then, I'll see you next class.